So welcome to the 2021 annual meeting for Island Readers and Writers. My name is Deborah Lay, and I am fortunate to sit as president of the board. And I had planned for each member to say hello, but let me just run down our list of board member names. And so we'll start with, of course, Jan Coates is our executive director. Russ Cox is one of our new members on the board. Catherine Emery is a new member this year. Michelle Finn, Gigi Georges, Andrea Gilmore joins us this year. Allison Poteet, and Jessie Vogel is also a new member of our board. So let me just start with some highlights for everybody. 2020 will forever be the year of change. The IRW staff, with Jan's leadership and guidance, have ensured that our mission has weathered the storm of 2020. One of our major highlights for the past year was the tribute bestowed upon IRW by the Library of Congress as we became an honoree in the spring of 2020 for our best practices in literacy and reading promotion. And even as we make the halfway mark through 2021, we can see that the remnants of the pandemic are no match for our programming initiatives, despite an ever-changing educational landscape. Our board continues to revisit our visibility, sustainability, and bridging goals, alongside a continual reflection of what they meant to us in a pre-COVID context, their present status, and their future in our planning. Our aim is to continually nurture the hard work of the IRW staff so that they feel supported in their endeavors. The financial and trusting support of all our friends and partners is what sustains our mission. Thank you for ensuring our precious programs continue to stretch imaginations, encourage curiosity, excuse me, and develop creative and reflective thinking in the children we serve throughout Maine. Our written annual report is on its way to your mailbox if it hasn't already arrived, providing more detail of our activities, finances, and accomplishments in 2020, and a timeline that highlights significant milestones in IRW growth over these now 15 years. A copy will be posted on our website as well. So, an overview of tonight. So tonight we have some board business to take care of, and that will include the election of officers, the notification of officers, and an overview of our financials. In addition, we'll hear from one of our partner school educators, Diana Mahar, as well as author Lauren Wolk, who stood by us throughout the pandemic. Tonight's meeting will also feature a red carpet showing of our video, which will hopefully entice your curiosity and pique even more interest in IRW's work with children, adults, and fabulous books. To lead off tonight's agenda, let me introduce our program director, Allison Johnson. It's all yours, Allison.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you to everyone who is with us here tonight on this lovely evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Lauren Wolk and Diana Mahar tonight. And I just wanted to start out by saying how in our work, we are so lucky to have the opportunity to work with many amazing people throughout our school partnerships and the authors and illustrators who join our team. Our response to the pandemic meant we were able to deepen these treasured relationships even more as we shifted our approach to meet the needs of the schools. Everyone stepped up with creative solutions and indomitable spirits as we regrouped, retooled, scheduled and rescheduled, and rescheduled and rescheduled again to make the programs happen. And after being entirely virtual during this time, we look forward to a few in-person visits this fall. Fingers crossed if the stars should align. Whatever happens, we now know that we can redirect and be effective. So tonight we have the pleasure of hearing from both an author and an educator, two very special people who've had great influence on student learning through literacy-based programs with IRW and beyond. First up is Lauren Wolk, who is a novelist, poet, visual artist, and associate director at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod in South Yarmouth, Mass. Her work there involves public relations, educational outreach, development, and programming. She is the author of 3 published middle grade novels, the Newbery Honor Book Wolf Hollow, Beyond the Bright Sea, and Echo Mountain. And we know there are more stories in the works, which we very much look forward to. IRW began working with Lauren in the fall of 2017 when we brought her to Mount Desert Island for the annual 7th grade read, where 120 students from across the district gathered at Camp Beechcliff along with community volunteers to have a shared experience around her book, Wolf Hollow. The middle grade novel tells the coming of age story of Annabelle, a 12-year-old girl growing up in rural Pennsylvania during World War II. We quickly realized we had a very special combo with both Lauren and her books and brought her down east to Jonesport Elementary School, where after having her students read the book, the ELA teacher asked if the kids could just have a conversation with Lauren because they were so excited and had so many questions. I will never forget that roundtable discussion and how Lauren met every kid where they were at and took the time to focus on each individual throughout the Q&A session. She has a way of making everyone feel valued. In the spring of 2020, we were slated to host a book release for her latest novel, Echo Mountain, but sadly had to cancel due to COVID. Echo Mountain is a story about a family struggling to adapt to hardship brought about by the Depression. It is a story of loss and healing and a timely and relevant book for the children living in today's world. Lauren visited virtually with kids at 7 of our partner schools over the course of the last year, sharing her writing process and answering kids' numerous questions that arose during their reading. And this fall, she'll be working with more of our partner schools who have signed up for book groups using Echo Mountain. And since writing is the most requested professional development offering we receive, we are hosting a writing workshop with Lauren at our annual site coordinator gathering this Wednesday. She has been a hit with our partner schools, and we look forward to a continued relationship with Lauren. And then after Lauren, you will get the pleasure of hearing from 5th grade teacher Diana Mahar. Diana has been an upper elementary grade school teacher at Spayek School for the past 6 years. She's currently working on her master's degree in instructional technology and is a level 2 Google certified educator, a skill that is a real asset to her school, especially during the pandemic. She was recognized for her good work when she was identified as Maine Teacher of the Year for Washington County this spring. Congratulations, Diana. Diana is a lifelong resident of Washington County, so she has a real appreciation of the beauty and also the challenges that come with living in rural Down East Maine. She's an avid reader who strives to foster that same love of reading in her students, which is clearly demonstrated in her work with IRW. Diana has shown us how using technology with students around literature projects can be a game changer when it comes to engagement. During this past spring semester, she had the kids use apps to create augmented reality scenes to demonstrate their learning as it related to Gary Schmidt's novel, Pay Attention, Carter Jones. There were 3D cubes with summaries, lists of characters, and favorite scenes. Yes, we too are still baffled at this technological wizardry. Diana knows how to integrate such skills with rich, diverse literature, bringing each book to life in her classroom. It was with Diana's classes that we came to understand the power of the chat in the Zoom sessions with middle schoolers, something for which we are grateful. Diana and her peers will be starting the year in the brand new Spayek School after many long years of waiting. Set on the gorgeous land of the Passamaquoddy on Pleasant Point, we hope this new school breathes life into the community, and we can't wait to visit in person. So welcome to both of you, and thank you for being with us.
My turn. First, I want to apologize because I was going to write out my remarks. I mean, I write everything, and I didn't hear because every time I tried to, it didn't have the heart that I wanted to convey to you about how I feel about the IRW. So I'm just going to speak from the heart. First, thank you for inviting me to say a few words at your annual meeting. It's a true honor because I am gobsmacked, as my British friends might say, by the IRW. I think you guys rock. You, from the very beginning, I guess, as Allison says, 2017 seems like longer than that. I have been so impressed with everybody involved, from all of you, the staff, the trustees, volunteers, everyone connected with IRW. The teachers and administrators at the schools I've visited, both in person and virtually, have been absolutely stellar, committed, and enthusiastic. And the kids, I haven't been able to meet their families, but if their families are anything like those kids, wow, they have just been so welcoming, so respectful, so enthusiastic, so grateful for the opportunity to own books, read books, talk about books, and write. I am honored to be here because of your mission. I work for a nonprofit, as Allison said. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits. For a long time, writing for me was very much a nonprofit enterprise. Um, I know what it is to dedicate heart, body, and soul to a mission. I know what it's like to have to raise money for that, to fulfill that mission. I know what it's like to just rally the troops to get out in the community and do what needs to be done to serve those who need the arts, literature, the way we need food and drink. And I salute you for doing such an impeccable job of fulfilling your mission, which is a pretty hard-boiled one. It's focused, it's realistic, it's absolutely like a laser. You want to put books in the hands of children and foster in them a love of reading and writing. It's pretty simple, and yet it's not at all, because every kid's different and every kid's relationship with books is different. Every school is different, every teacher is different. And you manage somehow to sort of uh, make us all partners in this great endeavor. And I am grateful for that opportunity. I just want to tell you briefly about two kids. I've met so many through you, but two always come to mind. One on my first trip up there to Jonesport in person. Allison, you may remember. Jan, you may remember. I don't remember his name, and I wish I did. He's a little, I guess he was, you said I met with the seventh graders, but I think this was a somewhat younger boy. And one of you, or perhaps a teacher, told me before I met him this little story, and you wouldn't have told it to me if it hadn't had if he hadn't had a change of heart. But originally he said, I don't need that stinking book, I'm going to go home and use it for kindling, you can keep it, whatever. And I'm listening to this story thinking, wow, I'm going to have a really tough audience. But when I met him, he said, I read Wolf Hollow 5 times. And when it gets made into a movie, and he might have even said, when I make it into a movie, I'm going to be in the front row and I'm going to watch it over and over and over again. He was so excited. He was my new partner, because no writer ever gets anywhere without a partner and a reader. And I was so thrilled to meet him and to see his eyes gleaming about reading. And from the story that I'd been told before I met him, that hadn't necessarily always been the case. But thanks to you, putting books in the hands of young readers and helping schools in any way you can to make literature of every kind part of their lives, so they're lifelong learners, so they write and read, so they bring that passion home to their families. It's beyond description how impressed I am with you. The other boy I met during COVID, virtually, we were doing a workshop and we were working on metaphors. And he said he'd written a poem, and I asked if he had it, and he ran and got it, and he read it to the group. And it was world class. It was so impressive. And I asked him to send it to me, and he did. And I wrote back to him. We had a nice little conversation. I made him promise to send me more, and I hope he does. That kid probably was born with a passion for writing. There was that spark, but that spark does not flame if you don't feed it. So even for the kids who take naturally to reading and writing, as I think he probably does, you are so important because you encourage that, you reward it, but you don't pick favorites. All the kids you serve have the same opportunities. You treat them all the same. You encourage them all. And that's very impressive and rare. So I have to thank you for doing that as well, for rising to the challenge of COVID, and for boy, meeting that challenge head on. I'm so glad I was a part of that with all of you. So whoever is out there listening, if you're already a part of this great organization, congratulations, you've chosen well. And if you're not, you're thinking about getting involved, supporting them financially with your time or your treasure or your talent in any way you can, I say yes, climb aboard. It's a great organization. Hopefully you will get to meet some kids like I have who will change your life forever. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, I think I'm up now. Yes, okay. So thank you for inviting me to do this talk here to your board and people out there beyond that may be interested in supporting Island readers and writers. Allison did introduce myself, but I will just say I am an educator here in rural Washington County, Maine. My school is a small rural school on the coast of Down East Maine on the Passamaquoddy Reservation. We serve about 150 students, grades K through 8. We have some local public libraries with not actually in the community, but in surrounding areas. And we're going to have a brand new library that we're really excited about in our school when we start on September 1st. I am also the 2021 Washington County Teacher of the Year, and I just want to put a little plug in there for anyone that's listening that it starts with a nomination. I was nominated by a colleague who is also a parent of 3 former students. And so if you, as you work with educators, think that they deserve, the chance to apply and go through the process to become a County Teacher of the Year, I encourage you to do that. It would be Maine, TOY, which is teacheroftheyear.org, mainetoy.org for the details, but it comes up in December. This process has really given me a chance to reflect on my practice and become a leader. It's not just a title, it's a chance to become a leader in educational practice and policy in the state of Maine. So if anyone thinks to do that, I'm sure your teachers will be greatly appreciative of that opportunity. So about my love of reading, I discovered my love of reading in the small library at my elementary school. I discovered that books could take me on a journey to faraway places. I could experience different times. I could be transported to magical places that only existed, in the imagination of the author. So as an educator, I take that and I think that everyone can be a reader. They just haven't discovered that yet. And so with 5th grade, they're the beginning of the middle school years. It's a tough time to pull the controls away for the remotes, and for the video games and get them reading. But one of my most favorite educational books is The Book Whisperer by Donalyn Miller. And her approach is very simple. It is affirm the reader in every student, allow students to choose what books they want to read, carve out reading time during the day. And as an educator, model authentic reading behavior. So when your students are reading, you should be reading too. Give your students opportunity to share books that they love. And also develop a library of filled with high interest books. And Island readers and writers are really great at providing those opportunities. So Island Readers and Writers supports me and other educators by not only bringing in books, but the people that write the books right into our classrooms. Now, this past year, of course, was all virtual, but we have had them right in our classrooms, and it's been great. For instance, I have experienced Kimberly Ridley with The Secret Bay in our classrooms. We also read her book, Extreme Survivors, and we actually went out and explored an Ice Age trail here in Washington County. And this book also introduced my students to a citizen science project through the Gulf of Maine Research Institute when they started looking for tardigrades in our local vernal pool. So that book connected right with our science curriculum that we were doing. They have experienced poetry and art with Caliph Brown in his book Hypnotize the Tiger. It's a great read. The Island Readers and Writers presented, every student with a signed copy and also their own art journal. It was a great experience for the students. Now, most recently this past year, I was given 3 opportunities, 2 which I took Island Readers and Writers up on. The first was a Newbery Award-winning novel, Moon Over Manifest by Claire Vanderpool. And the second was Pay Attention, Carter Jones by Gary Schmidt. Now, we've met with Claire once, and we met with Gary 3 times. Allison, also from Island Readers and Writers, did an initial Zoom before we read the book, where she led the students through a discussion, utilizing the visual thinking strategies, and it was a major hit. It really got the kids looking at that cover of the book and trying to figure out what was going on. Gary Smith did a nice writing in the middle of our reading, where we did visual pictures from the early 1900s, late 1800s, and they were able to come up with stories about these characters. And then our last meeting is when Allison had talked about bringing in the technology, the augmented reality book reviews that they created to share with the author. And they were really excited about that. So why is the work that Island Readers and Writers do important? Well, it provides opportunities for children to find their inner reader. They provide novels and author visits that spark interest in reading. For instance, here's a quote from one of my students. This student, Connor, is an athlete. That's what he likes to do, period. Any sport, he's into it. So when he finished reading Moon Over Manifest by Claire Vanderpool, he wrote a little final impression of the book, and I would like to share that with you. The things that surprised me about this book are 3 things. 1, that Ned is Miss Sadie's son. 2, that Sister Redempta is the Rattler. I'm sorry if I'm ruining the plot of this book for anyone that hasn't read it yet, but it's a great book. 3, and this is the really important one, that at the first of this book, I was not into it at all. But you changed my mind a lot about this book, from a 3 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 overall. At the end, I loved the story. When I was reading it, it made me feel like I was with the characters throughout the whole story. When I found out that Ned died, I felt it because I was so into the book. I mean, if those don't convince you, those words, I don't know what would. So my final thought, reading is its own reward. And IRW is an essential part of the reading community at my school. Educators look forward to the books and the author visits. They spark student interest in reading and becoming writers. Thank you for providing such a valuable resource to us. I will always be a vocal advocate for you and the program within our school and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana and Lauren. I have to say, I think you've been sprinkled with IRW magic. I think you're feeling it. And we heard all about that. And I just want to reach out and say thank you for a partnership, an enduring partnership. And I know that the silver lining in all our virtual visits is that myself and some other board members and others were able to join in, and we may not have been able to visit schools otherwise. So that's the silver lining from this past year. But thank you so much for all you've offered your students through IRW. We're going to segue now to Allison Poteet with our financial report. Allison. Allison, I can't hear you, but maybe others can. Oh. Still no.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, sorry, I will switch to phone. So I think Jan mentioned that this annual report for 2020 is on its way to your mailbox, so you can see more detail there, but we thought we would give you kind of a quick highlight here. And I'll just say the headline, I think, is this is a very healthy organization, very well managed by Jan and the staff, and loyal, growing donor base, and increasingly a really stellar track record in securing philanthropic dollars. So the balance between those two, successful grants and contributions, has been growing kind of more balanced over the years, and as last year was just a real incredible groundbreaking fundraising year in that respect. And while we lost just a little bit of ground in terms of gifts, given the circumstances of the year, I think that's to be expected. And we all feel just the support of our community of donors, and I think just amazing gratitude for the staff's work to give such continuity to programming and to experience through this difficult year, and feel like it positioned us really well for a rebound this year in every respect. So if we can talk quickly just about budget to actual, it's just the annual budget here, you'll see, yeah, you can say there, thank you. Contributions, 317, grants, 103, and those grants includes a 91% success rate in grants that we applied for, including one I believe we didn't even solicit that we ended up getting, and supporting all kinds of things beyond just programming, like the website redesign, some of the work around the podcast and other kind of virtual programming that was really effective this year, and has sort of broadened the brand a lot. So that just feels like a real kind of diversification and stability through what we knew was going to be a dynamic time. And obviously we've held the line on expenses. I think we can say a little more about this if it's helpful, but we're thinking about the office expenses that has held very steady over the years, and continue to feel like it's important to have an in-person component. And so just thinking about what those administrative costs, make sure that we keep them in line, and they've been very steady. Obviously, the vast amount of our expenses go right into programs, and that was no different last year. So you can see we're operating on a really healthy margin, again, even through a difficult time. So I think we're feeling like this all reflects just the level of faith in the work that we're doing. Any questions on this before we talk quickly about the balance sheet? If no, maybe we'll hold again for questions at the end, and you can go ahead to the other one. So you can see here, as this is as of July 8th, 2021. So, a kind of current accounting of where we are. I would just note really healthy assets. We've started to think about a little more interest-bearing investment, and down at the bottom here, you'll see a reference to the PPP loan. We have applied for forgiveness and have every indication that that's going to come through. So that was a really helpful boost through the difficult year. Probably didn't end up being absolutely necessary, but was helpful at the time, not knowing what we were doing or not knowing what would happen. So very healthy kind of overall balance here. You can see very minimal debt, and once that loan is forgiven, very, very, very low. So very healthy picture. I'm happy to pause here and take any questions or any questions for Dan. Catherine, feel free to type a question, or I'm happy to talk with you later too, if there's a better time.
I think that's where our questions would have to go right now. So we'll just keep an eye on that chat, Allison.
Okay. Oh, general. Just general and admin. Sure.
All right. Thank you, Allison, very much.
Thank you.
And next up is Jan. She's going to be talking to us about board membership, and also has a brief report for us.
Right. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you all for coming today, and for all the comments that have gone before. Wonderful. My name, as Deborah said, is Jan Coates, and I'm the Executive Director of Island Readers and Writers. But before I share a few comments and introduce our new story video, I wanted to announce that earlier today, the Board of Directors elected its new officers for 2021-2022. And they are Deborah Lay, President, Allison Poteet, who you just heard from as Treasurer, and Michelle Finn as our Secretary. Thank you, Taylor. Well, what a year it's been. To say our mission is more necessary for children today than ever, I think would be an understatement. It is essential. For more than half of the school-age children in Maine live in rural areas and are among those most disadvantaged during the pandemic. I don't think this is news to you, but I think it is stark to realize that over half of the school-age population does live in rural areas. Children faced inequities during this past year in broadband access, the absence of school supports such as food, healthcare, and being part of a caring community of peers and adults. These factors influence the many challenges that teachers like Diana had faced in continuing to provide meaningful and forward-moving education for youngsters. But it's because of these deep relationships with our partner schools that you've heard about from Lauren and Diana that IRW was poised to help. Our team was led by Director of School Programs, Allison Johnson, who provided a menu of programs, some coaching and overall assistance to teachers and school leaders. We had book groups, the whole book approach programs for pre-K through grade 2, and illustration and writing workshops. Just were a few examples among the many programs that we provided over the past year. Always integrating a book's content across the subject areas and grade levels to bring the great stories to life and to help children make meaning out of what they read. Exploring the world through story really helps us travel from the known to the unknown through the eye of characters and grow in our understanding in new and unexpected ways. This process of relating to a character, getting lost in a story, nurtures the habits of the heart and the mind. And for many children living in rural Maine and worlds that may feel narrow and lockstep, IRW's book-centered experiences inspire possibilities and open windows on the world. Reading helps children see beyond as well as appreciate their immediate surroundings and aspire to fulfill their potential as learners and citizens. This spring, I asked ML Flynn, Emmy-winning senior NBC nightly news producer, to produce a video that captures the special and important relationships between IRW and its partner schools and the learning inspired by our visits. Here now is ML to give a brief overview of the process and challenges of making a video during the pandemic. ML?
Well, it is a real privilege to join everyone tonight. I feel so honored to be part of this conversation. And I know I interviewed many of you all in the past couple of months for this video. When Jan asked me to do the video, I asked her a question that we always asked on Nightly News every night. We have a half-hour show. You have to fight your way into the rundown. We always ask, why should I care? And so when I said to Jan, why should I care about these children in rural Maine? I could tell she was startled, but she had an emphatic answer. And it was like, she said right away, these children are the future of Maine. And that became my narrative for this project. because the future of this state is at risk if we don't give these children opportunities. And I didn't even have to prompt anybody we interviewed because it came through. And that really is, as you all well know, the mission of IRW. And what I have been just so impressed with along the way is the heartfelt commitment of not only Jan and Allison and Taylor and the staff of IRW, but every author, illustrator, school principal, and teacher I interviewed. Everyone knows what's at risk, and everyone is embracing the mission. I do want to say before I go any further that I could not have done this without the fabulous Taylor Mace. Taylor Mace, who is the IRW Communications Director, was my wing lady and has become my dear friend throughout this project. And we brainstormed because we had a lot of production challenges because of the pandemic. I also want to thank Tate Yoder, who was the wonderful video editor that Jan and team hired for this project. He was just a wonderful partner, and we've all had this just magical experience together. But in terms of the pandemic, there were production challenges. I couldn't visit any schools, which I can't wait to do. I can't wait to go see Diana and Chris Crowley up at Beals and all these other schools that I feel like I know now. And I couldn't do any face-to-face interviews, and we couldn't shoot any original video. So we ended up doing, I did 12, I think, Zoom interviews along with my friend Taylor, and she often asked the best question. I also screened every single frame of video IRW ever shot from 2015 on, looking for little moments to create a sense of the journey, the emotional journey that people were talking about. And so it's not perfect, but hopefully we've succeeded a little bit on that. And we also tracked down stills to help dress this up a bit. So from a production point of view, it was a bit of a challenge, but I think the most important part is the heartfelt narrative that comes through here, because it echoes everything that, Lauren and Diana and Jan and everybody, Deborah has said tonight. So with that, I hope we did you proud. And the other thing I do want to say is about this video, I think it's timeless. I think it can live on your website forever.
I'm getting there.
Action.
Roll tape, as we say.
Roll tape.
Everyone can see this, correct? Full screen? Okay.
The magic of Island Readers and Writers is when I hear a child say, "Books make my world feel big." We travel by boat, by plane, and by car to our partner schools. Each one has a different personality. Some are one-room schools, like Frenchboro, that is 7 miles out to sea, and others are multi-grade, like Beals. Island Readers and Writers has a network of 26 partner schools that spans the Maine coast from Cliff Island in the southernmost part all the way up to the easternmost part of Washington County with the Passamaquoddy Reservation Schools. Why should you, as a potential donor, care about Island Readers and Writers and the children that we serve? These children are the future. They're the future of Maine, and they're the future of their communities. We know from the research that children who read are children who are engaged citizens as adults. And these are the children that need us more than ever.
In this particular area, most everybody is in the fishing industry, which is also on the brink of maybe not being there for the hundreds of years that it has already been. Most everybody here is a generational fisherman. Goes back to their great grandparents. Most of the children in this school by the age of 10 have their own lobster license and have their own traps. The fear is that that's not going to continue, that they're not going to be able to do that.
I have a very specific perspective as someone who grew up on Deer Isle, who went away, who never thought they'd come back or could ever belong on this island. But here I am, I'm back. It is a tough place to grow up. In rural Maine, it's definitely one of the areas in the country that's been hit hard by the opioid epidemic. We definitely have students who are coming to us who have lost parents.
There's stigma. There could be domestic violence, hunger. The schools around here all have had to put food pantries into their programs. So the schools are doing a lot more for these kids than they typically would be doing, just because we don't have the resources in the community.
So you make your shape in this stuff. That's good.
One of the many things that is so extraordinary about Island readers and writers is the time and effort they put into building relationships with schools and school communities, so that this is not just a one-off that they bring an author into the school. They bring authors every year, year after year.
We have been able to work with authors and illustrators with exceptional skills, great hearts, that are very interested in the children we serve and interest in Maine children.
IRW has just introduced me to this whole new world, and I find my bliss in elementary school classrooms, which is something I never could have imagined. And the reason I find my bliss there is just being around the creativity and energy of those children, writing their stories, sharing stories, making their art. And I'm really in awe of them.
Because of the isolation that these kids live in, and they pretty much know how their parents live, and it's many times how their grandparents live, and how their great-grandparents live. So their perception of the world is pretty narrow.
On the highest rock of a tiny island, the edge of the world, stands a lighthouse. It is built to last forever.
The edge of the world stands a lighthouse. It is built to last forever, sending its light out to sea.
So being able to have an author to come into the school that has a varied background, or authors and illustrators that have varied backgrounds, it opens up new avenues for them. It opens up scientists, being a marine scientist. It may open up being a musician. It may open up being something different. So Russ Cox is visiting us next month, and he's going to visit grades pre-K through 4. So that whole side of the building is abuzz with work. We've got paper mache planets being created. We've got space people's uniforms being created. We've got space helmets being created.
The astronauts that are on our International Space Station.
We've got space research being done by the 3rd and 4th grade. So every room has an entire docket solid full of projects ready to be completed.
Sometimes I'll take a sketch on the line. I think with faraway friends, when I come in and do the school visits, I think the kids, they start maybe learning about planets. Maybe they really had no interest in it before, and they start, well, there's this space and all this, there's spaceships. I can build a spaceship, or I can make a space helmet. So I think they learn about planets, but also they're learning storytelling skills when they come up with their own stories. Also, art skills.
Island Readers and Writers helps make the idea of becoming a published author or illustrator seem more accessible and achievable for our kids.
Having the kids talk to the authors and learning about their process of writing, that's really fascinating to students. Like, how do you come up with the ideas? How do you go about getting them to paper, and what happens after that, and how long does it take to write books? Kids come up with just the best questions, and sometimes even stumps the authors.
We had a fun visit at Charlotte Elementary School. The first thing we did was take a field trip. We borrowed a school bus and took a drive through the Moosehorn National Wildlife Refuge. And it was a cold October morning. Everybody was bundled up and our breath was all frosty. And we stopped at to observe a beaver lodge. Just that experience of focusing, quieting down. How would you describe this structure? What does it look like? What is the water like? It's about being present. Again, they're aware of their surroundings. So, what do you notice?
Some are taller than others.
Some are taller.
The joy that I see when the kids are presented a book from the author, standing in that line, waiting to get that author's signature, or they're just beaming from ear to ear, because they don't have that opportunity to have many books at home. Many of the kids, that may be that first book that they've ever had given to them.
There was a girl who took her book and she said, "Where should I put it?" And I said, "Oh, I think you could put it in your backpack." And she said, "I'm allowed to take it home?" And I said, "Yes, it's your book." And she said, "But I have to bring it back tomorrow, right?" And I said, "You can do whatever you like with it. It's your book. You can keep it." She said, "Forever?" I said, "Yes, forever." And she said, "I am going to read it every day for the rest of my life. I'll remember that forever."
When they're in line and I'm signing the book and they're able to talk to me, I think it just thinks of, oh, this is just a regular person. It's oh yes, so he writes and draws pictures for a living, but oh, he talked to me.
What is that?
What's your favorite thing to do? I was at a school and I believe he was a 7th grader. He came up to me and he did this whole PowerPoint presentation that he just showed to me on his laptop. So he was telling me about it and I looked over at the teachers and they're just shaking their head like, I'm like, okay, there's something wrong. And so I went back and paid attention to what he said. And he said, "Thank you very much for coming in." And I was honored and I went up to the teachers and I said, "Well, something wrong?" They're like, "He doesn't talk. He's the quiet one. We can't even get him to answer questions in class." He did all this on his own because he was inspired by the book. So to make that connection with that one student, first of all, it just melts your heart, but also I realized this is why I do what I do. I think these kids can often be forgotten, but I think the next Steve Jobs is sitting in those rooms. I think the next Maurice Sendak, the next Mary Blair. I think there's so much talent that can go forgotten because there's such a small community. They don't have access to the funds like a bigger community. So I think a lot of those places, the future is right there in those classrooms. We can't forget about it.
4, 3, 2, 1, let's go!
Bravo.
The one thing I want to add is that I forgot to mention that we enlisted the production talents of Chris Crowley from Beals Elementary and Laura Wenger from Frenchboro. And they shot video on their iPhone for us, which we were very grateful for.
Well, we're very grateful to you, ML, for leading this team to such a wonderful result. And we will put it on our website and we'll enjoy it for many, many years to come. Thank you so very much.
It was a privilege.
Are there questions that anybody has for our panelists or for ML at this point? Well, Deborah, do you have any parting words?
I'm too busy smiling and looking at the chat. This is great. Everybody's so happy with that. And I couldn't be more proud to be the president. And I'm just still reading. So thank you, ML. This is just such a treat for us.
Well, I really admire the work you all do. And as Jan knows, I have done a lot of big projects on children for NBC News on mental health and a big series on opioids in children. So when I see the work you all do and where your hearts are, I just feel so grateful to help out in a little way. So keep going.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And thank you all for joining us. This really completes our program. You'll have a chance to look at the video again on our website, and we hope you do over and over and over again and enjoy it as much as we will. So thank you for supporting IRW and especially for all the children that we serve. So good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.